wanted to talk about something. This keeps coming up. Like it keeps coming up. So I just wanted to talk about it. It came up yesterday, and when it came up yesterday, I really was like, So I was talking with someone, and I mentioned about my trip to Paris. And I hadn't mentioned it before, and the only reason I mentioned it is because I will need her services before my trip. Yeah. So, we made an appointment. So, anyway, I mentioned I was going on a trip at the end of the month, and she said, "Oh, where you going?" And I told her to Paris. And she was like, "Oh, wow, great." She was happy, for me and everything. And then the very next thing she said, we didn't discuss anything about the trip and how long I've been planning it or anything like that. There was no mention of that. It was just literally, I told her where I was going. The next thing, I'm sorry, the heat was on high. The next thing she said was, she said, "Did you guys finish paying it off?" And I was like, I answered her, I was like, yeah, but it had me thinking, and don't get me wrong, we did pay it. We paid it in a couple of payments, but I just was like to myself, of course I didn't say anything to her. Why would she automatically think that I'm paying it like a payment arrangement or a payment plan? Why wouldn't she just assume I paid it in one lump sum? Paid it off. And I'm not, this is not about her and her question, because I understand the question completely, and I understand why she asked the question, and I understand that totally. But it had me thinking about our mindset, and I'll speak for myself. My mindset is similar to that, meaning that we can only take a big trip or a luxury, was I guess considered a luxury trip, if we're gonna pay it in increments and pay it off. And I would say that that's a poverty mindset. That's a poverty mindset, that's automatically where you go to, is that somebody had to make multiple payment arrangements in order to afford a trip like this. Now again, we did make, it wasn't 10 payments or anything crazy, it was 3. But it again, this was not about her and asking the question. I know exactly where the question stemmed from, but it just had me thinking that when you grow up in a certain neighborhood, in a certain environment, which I grew up in the hood, I grew up in a poverty mindset. And, we all had, I believe, we all in that environment had the same mindset, poverty, and that everything is a struggle, and that, only, I'm gonna say it, only white people have money, and their world is very different from ours. And for some reason, they have everything. Their life is wonderful, and our lives is not. I remember when I first I call her my first true white friend. To this day, we're great friends. I mean, we may not talk all the time, or we just had lunch over the holidays. We had lunch. We always get together a couple times a year and reconnect and have lunch and all, but get caught up on each our lives and everything. And I always call her my first, like I said, my first white friend, because prior to me, and we only met. Contacts app. What's happening? What's happening to my phone? We only met, like, this was only like 12 years ago when I first started at my job, the job that I'm at now. She worked there. That's how we met. And she no longer works there, but I had never had I had white people that I was friendly with. We were cool. We were, I worked with them, usually coworkers. I worked with them. They work, we worked together and all. And, maybe we exchanged numbers, probably just for the sake, because we worked together, and, and we may have gone to lunch together or something like that. And we may have even become Facebook friends, but never I actively reach out to her to see how she's doing, how's her family, how's everything, or never been to their homes, that type of thing. But this particular woman, been to her home. She's never been to mine. But anyway, I'm getting off track. But she was my first true white friend. And it was because of the mindset that I had, that white people were so different. And when I learned that, I think I said to her at one time, I mean, she's in a totally different situation right now, but I was like, I didn't know white people were white. I didn't know there were broke white people out there. I didn't know there were white people struggling like me. I just didn't know. I thought all white people had money. I thought all white people were rich. But that was the mindset that I grew up, the environment that I grew up in, and the mindset went along with that. So like I said, this one person mentioned to me about my trip and, about these payment arrangements that I was making. And she goes on trips too. She goes, I think she goes more like to the Caribbean and all. And, I'm sure, again, that's where that came from. But it was just odd that was the first thing she said to me. She didn't say anything like, oh, I bet it's expensive, or, oh, I bet, she just said, did you guys finish paying off your payment arrangements or your payment plan or something like that? And I was just like, yeah, we paid it off. And we didn't pay it off like over a year or anything like that. We paid it off in a few months, But anyway, that's beside the point. But another person that also comes to mind, and he's actually a guy that I watch on YouTube. I follow him on YouTube, and at first when I started following him, I was like, oh, this guy's really cool, And then the more I follow him, quite frankly, it's more out of, I don't know why I follow him, but the mindset, his mindset, I can tell is a poverty mindset, scarcity mindset. And again, I only identify with this mindset because I've had this mindset and may still have some of this mindset as well. So that's why I recognize it. And so I'm not putting him down. I just recognize that, oh, I know what that is. I see, I recognize that, because it's what it is a scarcity mindset. Like, for example, in my neighborhood where I grew up, I always wondered this when I was growing up, and, there were people in the neighborhood, they never had a car, like, ever. like ever. They always just took the bus. Like that was what they did. They took the bus. You never saw, not even a used car. Like they just took the bus. Like that was, they got a bus pass and they took the bus. And you know, it's if they never knew that you could actually have a car. And even though yes, you're paying more for the car and all of that, but your life is going to, the quality of your life is going to improve so much, because you're going to be able to get to from point A to point B a whole lot quicker. And it's going to give you a lot more time to do whatever it is you want to do, you need to do, or whatever. Like your life is going to, it's going to expand because you're going to have more time to do the stuff that you need to do. But yeah, there were people that just never had a car. And I'm not talking about somebody ain't got no job, ain't got no, I'm talking about working class people that worked every single day, but they took the bus. That was what they did. Now, my mother, my mother never drove. Like she never drove. My father, my father drove. Now, my parents were born in the 1920s, the late 1920s. They grew up in a whole different era. But my mother never had a license. So when my father passed away, 25 years prior to my mother, she was older. She was in her 70s at that point. She wasn't going to start learning how to drive then, but she had never driven ever. If she was someone that had driven previously, I believe she still would have been driving in her 70s. Anyway, my point is just that there's clearly, when you grow up in certain environments, and the same thing the other way. When you grow up in, and I'm sure, because I didn't grow up in this environment, but when you grow up in I won't even say wealthy, but I guess it's considered middle class environment, where it's, first of all, 2-parent household, and 2 cars in the driveway. You guys both work. You have money to send your kids to college and all of that. There's certain, and you can take vacation whenever a couple times a year, and there's no struggle. Like, for the most part, your life is not a struggle. You can go to the grocery store. You don't have to check your bank account before you check out. You can, buy what you need. Those households and those environments have no idea what other people are experiencing unless you've experienced that. And I've experienced both. I've experienced let me check my bank account. Let me put this stuff back. I experienced that, and I experienced, now why does she have to pull up? It's like 50 million parking spaces in this parking lot, and I'm not in a designated park. I know I'm a little behind a park, or in kind of in 2 parks, but there's 50 million parking spots, and she decides to pull up behind me as I'm making this video. Okay. But anyway, so yeah. So, and there's no stores open. Where are you going? Oh, you going to the deli? Okay. So, I just, took note. Like I said, I watched the guy on YouTube, and I watch him more for entertainment purposes. He's actually hilarious, because he thinks he's teaching people things, and the stuff that he's teaching, maybe his channel is appropriate for teenagers or kids who are you know, before they go out off to college, teaching them different like little life skills or little basics on cooking and how you cook a, you know, certain, you know, food if you have a smaller. But he's teaching it on his channel like he's teaching the masses, you know, how to make a fried bologna sandwich. And I don't mean to make fun of the guy. I actually did like him in the beginning. I'll be honest, I did like him in the beginning. But the more and more I see how he treats his, I guess it's his girlfriend. I don't like that mindset, because it's someone that doesn't respects women. I get that whole vibe from him, from just how he treats her. Anyway, I could make a whole video on that. But anyway, my point was just that truly your environment that you grew up in will determine your future. It will determine your future, because it will determine your future. Because if you stick with that mindset, I mean, if I stick with a mindset of everything I do, I have to do a payment arrangement, I have to do, you know, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. But if I believe that, no, my next trip, I'm paying for it in full, I'm paying in one, you know, and I'm paying way before we take the trip. And then the resources for that will come together. And anyway, I'm not getting off on a whole manifesting video. But anyway, I just wanted to share that because I thought that was interesting that she just mentioned that, like, out of the blue. And then also, like I said, I've been watching this guy, and his mindset is it's such a scarcity mindset that it's sad. It's actually sad. But anyway, have a great day. Stay safe. God bless. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care.